Good morning. I'm Laura King Moon. I'm Chief Deputy Director at DWR, and I've been a partner in crime with Carl on this project since 2006. So, seen the project through a lot of changes over that time, including the changes that have been made in response to your previous review, which was very helpful. And I think that you'll find that there's much more focus on the actual uncertainties. I think that was probably one of the most important global comments that you all made, and many specifics where you asked for more acknowledgement of the uncertainties. So I appreciate that previous review. We recognize that it's still not perfect. There's really at least a 6-month cycle on science in Delta. We're learning new things all the time, and even as we work on this project, we're incorporating this new science. We've had a very wet water year, 2011, and now we're in the middle of a dry cycle, and we're learning all kinds of things from that pattern of hydrology. So there's still a lot of information being collected and being put into this as we go, as well as reacting to your review and other comments that we'll be receiving in the comment period. As Peter Goodwin said, it's very challenging to predict the outcome of all of this. And in light of that, a lot of the effort that we have spent, the 5 agencies, in working on the BDCP over the last 6-8 months, has been, in addition to modifying the effects analysis to reflect that uncertainty, also coming up with better management strategies for dealing with that uncertainty. That's not really your purview. You're really focused on the effects analysis, but I thought you might be interested in just kind of hearing some of the specific areas of change that we've made dealing with adaptive management for helping with dealing with the uncertainty that we know when the permits are finally issued. What are we going to do going forward? So I'm starting with the goals and objectives, and I'm going to tick through some things really quickly, and I'm going to give you some page numbers from the portions of the chapters so that you can go back and look at these. There's probably about 20 pages total sprinkled throughout a couple of the key chapters where these concepts are described, so I'll give you those page numbers so you can find them. But we tried very hard to make the biological goals and objectives as numeric and quantifiable as possible. In doing that, we felt there was still a lot of uncertainty about their attainability. And in order to deal with that, we've made provision that both the biological objectives can be tuned and changed if necessary, and the conservation measures can be changed if necessary, and that includes water operation rules. So that's a fairly big change. You can find the description of that on in Chapter 3, page 3.3. 0.1 through 3, 3.1-3. Another important change is that whether or not the conservation measures are to be modified in response to whether an objective is being met, that final decision is up to the permitting agencies. Before, it was up to a combination of the permitting agencies and the permittees. There was a lot of concern about that. The final decision is now up to the permitting agencies. And you can find that on page, this would be Chapter 7, page 7-3. It's also subject to a dispute resolution process. I would urge you to take a look at that, page 7-17. We do want to make sure that we have some scientific review as we go forward in modifying either the objectives or the conservation measures. So that is spelled out on page 7-17. We're going to have an annual and 5-year review process by the adaptive management team on whether we're tracking on target with achieving the objectives. The description of that is on Chapter 3, page 3.6. And last, we have added a new feature for adaptive management, an Adaptive Management Resources Fund. I believe we've called it the Supplemental Adaptive Management Fund. And that is described starting on page 3.4-354. That is a fund of at least $450 million to be established to provide for whether it's purchase of additional water or more habitat restoration, different kind of habitat restoration, whatever changes might be needed moving forward to implement the program. So all of those things are, and lastly, I'm sorry, I skipped over one important change as well. We've had the decision tree, which was designed explicitly to deal with the question that Steve Culberson asked you to look at, and that is whether the habitat restoration can work, to paraphrase in the vernacular, instead of outflow or as well as outflow in terms of improving conditions for fisheries. The decision tree was designed explicitly to look at, to be collecting information and sorting that question out. It's now very clear in the write-up on the decision tree that it's likely that the permit that is issued at the time that BDCP is completed will likely be based on the high outflow scenario, which I think is fair to say that currently the fishery agency's current view of what is the needed outflow. But it also makes it clear that there will be a 10-year science process that will reevaluate that. So that description of in the decision tree, I believe, is on page 3.4-24. So that's a change that is different from the previous version. So I will stop there and let you get into the actual science, but I thought it would be helpful to have a bit of that context in terms of we have been very focused on the uncertainties. We hope that you will find that we've done an accurate job of displaying the uncertainties, but obviously looking to get your recommendations for where things need to be tightened up or improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. All right. Did the panel have any questions for any of the BDCP agencies before we jump into presentations from ICF? All right. So if we can get the clicker, oh, it's up there.